With the hype train starting immediately after the 2025 NFL draft was over, I haven't asked the question yet. Was the Cardinals draft class overhyped? Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast, and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit that subscribe button, man. 2 notifications on. 9th year hosting this podcast, 15th year in sports media in Phoenix. And as I said yesterday, as I've said a bunch, this is going to be the most exciting season so far. You know, when you see a band for like $8 before they get big, and then now you have to buy tickets that are like $180. This dude right here, I've kind of lived that journey. Trevor Sikkema, formerly of Locked On a decade ago, now the lead draft analyst over Pro Football Focus, host of the NFL Stock Exchange with Connor Rogers. Dude, this is our yearly catch-up. How's it going?
It's going good, man. I appreciate you having me on the show, as always. Glad you got an $8 ticket to the show early on. But no, this is great. It's always good to catch up with you. It's always good to talk Cardinals. I say this all the time. Like, I feel like the Cardinals are one of the most like undercovered teams in the NFL. So just doing this from like a national perspective, I always have like friends who I've connected with over the years who like cover certain teams. And I'm thankful that like I get to come on this show every year and we get to actually like get into the weeds of what the Cardinals were able to do, because I actually get to hear it from somebody who covers the Cardinals year in and year out. So it's always good to be back on with you, my friend.
What a sweet backhanded compliment to start the show. It's fantastic. No, I agree, because I mean it's something that needs to be earned. I mean, the Chargers are one of those teams. There's always those weird teams, Jacksonville, that are kind of like tertiary in the level, even though Cleveland's bad, even though the Giants have always been bad, they're always up there.
Right.
It's just, you know, it's just what it is here in the Valley. So you and Connor Rogers, you maniacs over at Stock Exchange, do mock drafts throughout the offseason, and then you'll do your grades at the end of the draft, like, you know, quick reaction. And while the Walter Nolen, Will Johnson dynamic duo 1-2 punch of the first 2 rounds kind of carried the positivity, you know, going after the draft, you guys gave them a B+. Mm-hmm. And there's one specific reason why you gave the Cardinals a B+ draft and a B+ offseason as a whole. What is that reason?
It's the lack of what they did along the offensive line. And you can't do everything. I understand. I'm not trying to nitpick and be unfair, but I do look at sort of, they had the opportunity, in my opinion, especially in the draft. I'm really looking at the draft because free agency kind of is what it is. You spend money here and there on free agency. Some teams don't want to spend money. Some teams want to spend a lot of money. So it's always a little different for free agency, but everybody has the opportunity to draft certain players. And when I look at their interior offensive line, you know, with Evan Brown and Yalda Froholt and Isaiah Adams, like they struggled last season. And that's the scheduled starting interior trio that they have once again this year. And then long-term, you're looking at offensive tackle needs as well, right? Like Jonah Williams going into last year of his contract. And I just thought this team would do more than Hayden Connor, the guard in the 6th round. Like I really do look at what separates this from being like a B+ to an A. And I want to be very clear. I love what they did on the defense side of the football. And when you hire a defensive head coach, this really sort of is your destiny, right? I mean, like they weren't very good Jonathan Gannon's first year. I think they were one of the lowest graded defenses in the NFL, especially in run defense in that 2023 season. They were a lot better in that area this past year, but they really wanted to take that leap. And the roster is just so night and day different with what he wants to do. And I think that they made it so they basically said to Jonathan Gannon, like, hey, you are a defensive-minded head coach now. This defense better be top 10 in the NFL. Like, we've given you the ability to do that. And so I don't want to be too much of a hypocrite here because I like what they did on the defensive side, but there's a specific pick, and it's that Jordan Birch pick in the 3rd round where I at least would have gone, okay, like Marcus Bowe is still there. Wyatt Milam is still there. Jared Wilson is still there. And they just didn't go with any sort of short-term or long-term addition to the offensive line. And that's after a free agency period where they've addressed a lot on the defensive side of the ball. And then they drafted Walter Nolen, and then they drafted Will Johnson. So that was the point where I would have been like, okay. Like, I get it, defense, draft an offensive lineman. Like, let's get an offensive lineman here. And that's the spot that I look at. We can kind of go talk about like whether or not they really would have considered it in the first round. But ultimately, I did like what they did this offseason, as evidenced by the B+ grade. But what held them back from really getting an A, in my opinion, is I worry about that offensive line short and long term.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I think the little clip, I'm not sure if you saw it, of Jonathan Gannon jumping into Monty Austin Fort's arms after they drafted Walter Nolen, like that was their dude the entire time. Like, if your dude is there, throw the book out. That's your guy. And I think I look dumb. Bo Brock, a close friend of mine, over at PHNX now, like I texted him. I'm like, bro, I was so off. He goes, that was it. He was the dude. And, I think there's two things that I'm known for saying since the beginning of this. One, you've grown to love is eat your vegetables, and Steve Keim never did. And the second one is if you don't protect Kyler Murray, none of this is going to work. So that was the entire thing. But I think the Will Johnson pick in the second round shifted everything. It's like, okay, you know what? They're going to be a top 5 defense this year. You're going to pick defense, best player available the rest of the way out, and you can't fault it because they need edge rush help too, dude. So, that's why I struggled this entire process. You can't be mad at it, and it's like, if that's the glaring issue, that's the worst glaring issue to have at offensive line.
Yeah, and I think, when you get to take a step back and really just look at the whole offseason here from the Cardinals, it's very clear that, like you said, they're gunning to be a top 5 defense in the league. If not like top 10, in my opinion, in most categories is sort of the floor. Like, that's the expectation now, that you're going to be a top 10 defense in the NFL. You're hoping that it's top 5. You're hoping that you're one of the best in the league. But I think that, now we're getting to the point of things on the offensive side of the ball where we go, okay, we're giving the defensive-minded head coach all the ingredients that he wants to make his signature recipe of being a good defensive mind. And now we're basically saying, not that they don't have any talent along the offensive line, but they've done a decent amount with the running back room and some of the weapons that they've brought in. Obviously, having Trey McBride is huge, plus at the tight end spot. And they're basically looking at Kyler Murray and saying, we hoped that you would look like, or at least I certainly did. I hope that last season he would have looked closest to that MVP version before he got hurt. He really didn't. It was really a roller coaster again from Kyler Murray. And I think that this team is now saying, all right, we're going to invest in the defensive side of the football this offseason. And we're basically going to say to Kyler, not that he's all alone, because I don't think he's all alone on offense, but basically, can you elevate the rest of this team the way that we believe you can? And if you can do that, we promise you next offseason, our foot will be on the gas pedal on the offensive side of the ball. We'll go get you more weapons. We'll add multiple pieces to the offensive line. Everything that we do will be revolved around you because we will already have the defense the way that we want it to be. And ideally, that's how you set up what they hope to be a 3 to 4 year winning window. But it all kind of hangs on Kyler Murray being more consistent, and as consistent really as he has ever been in his NFL career. Because if not, then you get in a situation where you go, okay, this guy's probably not our guy. Like, now we need to think about moving on because he's just not consistent enough to win us a Super Bowl. So we'll already have the defense where we want to. And then next year, maybe you get aggressive and perhaps looking at different options. So that's the way that when the draft finished and when the offseason was over and I looked at what the Cardinals did, I said, okay, I think I see the vision. I think I see the plan. It's a 2-year plan here to emphasize defense first and basically say to Kyler, can you elevate this group from what we have right now? Because if you can, we will give you everything that you want next offseason.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see. And you know what? Because this is my show, I can change everything. We're not going to talk about Walter Nolen or Will Johnson next. We're going to kick that back a segment. I want to talk about Kyler Murray a little bit because I've been discussing this specific thing, and I want to get your thoughts on it. Trevor Sikkema, Pro Football Focus lead draft analyst over there, NFL Stock Exchange, joining me here. We'll discuss that next. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. NBA playoffs in full swing, man. They have been crazy. And every night delivers highlight-worthy performances. If you haven't been watching, start paying attention. Major momentum shifts. Can't miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. You want to pick who's going to win the entire thing? Good luck. Go to the future of who's going to win the championship. Those numbers are fluctuating daily, it seems. New to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Trevor Sikkema, Pro Football Focus, hardest working man in show business, joining me here today at Tampa Bay Trey on Twitter. So my thoughts for 2025 and the Kyler Murray, haters, for lack of a better phrase, like, oh, it's year 7. What do you have to prove? Like, why are you still waiting? Not all spots are created equal as a rookie. Not everybody has an Andy Reid. Not everybody has Bill Belichick. Not everybody has, and for me, if this is the last year of the Kyler Murray experience, I want it to go down like the Hindenburg. Like, I want him to throw the ball 25% more than he has. I want the ball to be in his hands so much more, even if it is a run-first offense. They've got one of the better trajectoried 1-2 punches in football with Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr. Use them. Do you think it should be an iteration of this offense to kind of move 10% away, 5% away from run first, run second, and let the kid eat and see if that's the way to unlock it? I think he gets bored, dude. I think he's a sharpshooter. I think if you run the ball during the first quarter, he gets cold. He needs to warm up.
Well, and they've invested in the running back room, so I don't want to – I don't know how much I can necessarily push back on that. I don't hate your idea of obviously just making this guy the focal point of your offense. I'm just looking at some of his numbers right now, and they are reminiscent. Even last year, they are reminiscent of what we saw in 2021, in 2020, when he was really throwing the ball a ton. 3,800 passing yards this past season, 3,900 in each of those two seasons, 2020 and 2021. You look at the big time throw percentage. I think that's really where things get a little bit different, because last year he had a 4.7% big time throw percentage. That 2021 season, it was all the way up to 7.9. So maybe that's like where you dial it up. You just let him sort of unleash a little bit more. But the year before it was right around 4.6. So it's kind of the same thing. Last year, the turnover worthy plays were at 2.4%. His MVP caliber season was a 2.3. The year before was a 2.5. So that's relatively the same. But you really you're hoping to crank up those big time plays from him. And again, I think that he has the ability to do that. I think last year was a little frustrating from him, but I think that it is well within the realm of possibility that next year could be the best year that we have seen from Kyler Murray. And honestly, if it is, man, the Cardinals are going to be a problem. Like, this team is going to be a problem to deal with this offense, with this defense now, as talented as it is, with a lot of these new guys and a lot of these free agents that they were able to bring in. So I don't know if I'd like totally get away from the run game, because like that is when the Cardinals were having a decent amount of success. Yeah. Like I think about that San Francisco game, which was like week 4, week 5. I can't remember what it was, but fourth quarter, I mean, they're just running down San Francisco's throat in San Francisco, and they end up coming away with a huge victory in that game, but it's because they ran the ball extremely well. So I think they've orchestrated the team the right way. I think it's less of a volume thing, in my opinion, and more of a give Kyler the opportunity to really hit deep down the field. And I'm not so sure that he has had the weapons over the last couple of years to be able to do that. And so I think the volume is correct, but give him the ability to stretch the field a little bit more. Let's get that big time throw rate above 6% again. Like, it doesn't have to be damn near 8% like it was in that 2021 season, because that's an extremely high number, just to give people reference. But something above 6%, keeping the turnover worthy play rate somewhere around 2.5%. I mean, that is a mix that could absolutely get the Cardinals in the playoffs next year.
Yeah. And for clarification, I mean, so say the Cardinals are 60-40 flat run pass. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking 55-45. Just give, like, if he's the best player on the field, I don't care how much he makes. I don't care that he's the quarterback. What I know to be certain, to be fact, is when he's great, very few players are as good as him in football. Like, you give him the secondary, he's a top 7 quarterback in football when he's at his best. And the bad quarterbacks in football at their best aren't ever going to be as good as Kyler Murray is at his best. So when you look at things like Baker Mayfield, going into your back door, you've been, a Bucs fan for a long time, like Baker Mayfield's floor is significantly higher than Kyler Murray's. And Kyler Murray's ceiling, you can't even see Kyler, even though Baker had a year last year, which is fascinating to see. Like, with weapons, with stability, what Jason Light has done there is nothing short of incredible. What Todd Bowles has done there, like, with stability, Baker eats. He was in dysfunction in Cleveland. And Kyler Murray now is pretty much on a different organization wearing the same uniform. So it's like there's no excuse as to why it can't happen. I'm just curious to see if Drew Petzing can get out of the Mesozoic era and kind of wrinkle in plays that we see in Week 18 after they're out of playoff contention that we've been pining for in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to sort of piggyback off of it and say, yeah, I mean, it's time to push the limits of the ceiling. And I feel like at times maybe you're focused a little more on the floor and the stability and the flow of the game and all that kinds of stuff. But this is the year to push the ceiling with Kyler Murray.
Yeah, let her rip. I mean, what do you have to lose at this point? Mm-hmm. And, with everybody's going to talk about the quarterback-rich draft next year. You don't want to go through another rookie quarterback cycle, especially with a team that's ready to rip. I do want to ask you one quick thing. We're going to nerd out here on wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3. Going to kind of put you on the spot here. I've championed Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch pretty much since they've been drafted and since Greg Dortch has been severely underpaid. He's the preseason darling, and he's after they're out of playoff contention darling. But in the middle of the year, when you need a spark, they've got one, and he's standing on the sideline with a helmet in his hands. And there was one play in Week 17 against the Rams that made me throw my phone proverbially at the TV. There was a little slip screen in the slot where he caught it and took it 40 yards, a chunk play in the middle of the field. It's like, where the bleep has that been all year? I don't think they need more wide receiver help. I think the evolution of this offense needs to disperse the targets a little bit more. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they have a solid wide receiver trio, I think, with Marvin Harrison Jr., with Michael Wilson, with Greg George. You could throw Zay Jones into that mix if you want. I think Semi Fehoko could be a good vertical option for you. But I agree, man. I like Dortch, and I was kind of surprised at how little he was used last season. Yeah. I feel like he is something that they don't have right now. Obviously, I'm not mentioning Trey McBride, who's very much into the passing offense as well. But I think that you have 3 big-bodied sort of contested catch guys in Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson and Trey McBride, and then let Greg Dortch be a yards after catch guy for you, right? I just think that he could switch it up a little bit more than they're giving him credit for. So I'm with you, man. I think that they need to give this guy a little bit more attention.
Yeah, and I think you're right. With Trey McBride, I just call them pass catchers because it's like you have to talk about it like Gronk and Kelsey are your number one options. It's like the Cardinals aren't any wide receivers. Their best pass catchers, they're tight end. You can't have a conversation with just the wide receiver room when you're allocating $40 million guaranteed over 4 years to a dude who's going to be all pro.
Right.
It's stealing. And I'm sure it's not going to be like that forever with the tight end room, but they stole 7 more years or whatever of Trey McBride for pennies on the dollar. So you got to think about it as such. And so I agree with you. We're going to talk about one more thing before we get out of here. Does Walter Nolen plus Will Johnson popping equal an absolute cheat code that the Cardinals got away with in the 2025 draft? We'll discuss it next. Trevor Sikkema, Pro Football Focus, joining me here. I'll be right back. At Tampa Bay Trey on Twitter, 3-side minimum.
It's true.
Minimum.
It's true.
Newly married. Congratulations.
It's true.
Damn, dude, power couple over there on the SEC. So, here's the thing. As I said, offensive line was my choice. The mock for Locked On Cardinals, I had them taking Will Johnson at 16. So, to my surprise and elation, doing a proverbial backflip, regardless of this lingering knee injury that seemingly didn't exist, I don't know if the Cardinals could have got a better 1-2 punch regarding the trajectory for what these players could be in a vacuum compared to the other 45 picks in the top 47. Do you think this could be the best defensive lineman and best corner in the draft, like by leaps and bounds, if they hit 90% of what people expect?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have – man, and now I'm trying to think. I think I had Walter Nolen as my DT2 in the draft, right behind Mason Graham. And I think I had Will Johnson as my, well, depending on what you think of Travis Hunter. CB2, I had Jahdae Barron just in front of Will Johnson. But
and you had, just to cut off, you were the first one to mock Will Johnson to the Cardinals at 16 out of anybody. You were the first one to put a corner at 16. One of your first mocks.
I mean, it always made too much sense to me. And the fact that they come away with both these guys is huge. I mean, these are 2 players who were top 20 on my board. I think Will Johnson was right around 16 and Walter Nolen was 8, top 10 on my big board. And you get both of those guys. I mean, Walter Nolen, getting him where they did at number 16, that was good value in and of itself. And then you get Will Johnson 30 spots lower than where I had him ranked on my big board. I mean, that's just insane value from both of those players. So, yeah, I mean, there is a good chance that we could look back. Well, I don't want to say good chance because you never know, but like
Right.
talent-wise, this could absolutely look like one of the best draft classes that we saw in the 2025 NFL draft because of what these dudes can become. I love the fact that Walter Nolen gets to be in a defensive line room with Dalvin Tomlinson and with Calais Campbell. I love that. Darius Robinson was just, praised for his work ethic and who he is and a culture guy last year. So even though he's not a veteran, that seems to be a pretty good room in that defensive line to get the most out of Walter Nolen, who has potential that's through the roof. And then Will Johnson, the thing about Will Johnson and why it made sense to draft him at 16 is because like the corner room is already great. Like if he becomes your CB1, like you're living large, man. If you're pushing, it just helps everything out. Like asking Sean Murphy-Bunting to be your CB1, that's a stretch. Asking Garrett Williams to be your CB2, that might be a little bit of a stretch. But if you have Sean Murphy-Bunting as your CB2, okay, it's great. If you got Garrett Williams as your CB3, okay, great. If Max Melton can start on the outside or in the slot for you, like all of a sudden, everything looks so much better if Will Johnson's your CB1. Like the whole rest of the room gets better. All the matchups get better. You get to play these guys in advantageous situations, all of that. And you're not stretching them to play above maybe where you would want to, given their talent or where they're comfortable, inside or out, things like that. So I think it's excellent for them to take this chance here. I say that knowing nothing about his knee injury and why he fell all the way to 47, but talent-wise, from what I've seen from Will Johnson on the field, to get that type of a player in the second round, could absolutely go down as the steal of the draft.
Yeah. Top 15 defense last year with no pass rush, and that was all the secondary. So what I say is neither of those players were drafted to save the position. So they're able to actually grow organically as a young player around vets, which is great. One last question before we get out of here. I have this theory that Cody Simon is only a fourth-round pick because he went to Ohio State and they had such a good defense, and there were so many other key positions there where if he went to Toledo or if he went to Buffalo or if he was at McNeese State, he would have been a top two, or he would have been a second-round pick. Am I off the wall thinking that he could be the green dot guy week one in a position group that is the weakest on the roster?
I wouldn't totally agree with you that I think that if he's at a different school, he's drafted that high. But I know they do speak highly of him. And the thing that I like the most about Cody Simon is the fact that Jonathan Gannon does like to be a little bit multiple in his defense. And I think Cody Simon's one of the few linebackers in this class where I would actually trust as a Sam as much as a Mike. Like I would actually say like, okay, well, when we go heavy personnel, like if it's 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, or we're talking goal line or something like that, and you're trying to get 3 linebackers on the field, but one of those linebackers you want to have closer or on the line of scrimmage to the strong side of the offense, like Cody Simon is actually one of those guys who makes sense to be able to do that. Now, I think that they needed upgrades at their linebacker level anyways. So I think what you're saying of Simon eventually becoming a green dot guy for them, not impossible. Now, I think the linebacker room goes into that as much as Simon does, but this dude is somebody who I think landed in a good spot, can be a rotational player for them at the very worst, and then who knows, maybe he does end up being a starting Mike caliber of a player for them as they build out the rest of that linebacker room. But I do like him as a rotational player at the very worst, and I think he landed in a good spot.
Last 2 national championship defensive MVPs, both on the Arizona Cardinals. Trevor Sikkema, tell people where they can find you. You've got like 2 minutes, so give the short version.
Okay. Everything over at PFF.com, really, and the PFF NFL show. We're doing content all the way throughout the summer. But anybody out there who's a major draft addict, if they want to come and hang out with myself and Connor Rogers on the NFL Stock Exchange show, we're covering the NFL Draft 365. We're digging into summer scouting here in a couple of weeks, getting to those positions, getting to talk to you guys about 2026, who you should watch for in college football. We'll give you the rankings, our thoughts, all that great stuff over at the NFL Stock Exchange.
You guys are sickos. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Remember, without you, there is no me. Schedule talk tomorrow.